Does how you dress reflect the life that you want? Today I want to talk about the science and art of creating a visual identity for your personal brand that matches your dream life. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. What you wear quietly shapes how you think, perform, and lead. So how you dress isn't just about vanity. As the science shows, it's a behavioral strategy. So picture this. You're sitting down with an architect who's designing your dream home. First, they present you with mood boards because design should be inspired and art mimics life. And what they're presenting to you reflects your human experiences, your social realities, and the artifacts of your life. And the way that they present their plans to you communicates both form and function, because designing your dream home should be about an expression of yourself as well as a reflection of your everyday realities. So now I want you to apply this same thinking to the visual identity of your personal brand, because whether you choose to care about your clothes, if you are choosing to wear clothes every day, you are making a decision about how you are presenting yourself to the world. You're making a decision about how those clothes are going to serve you, even in a functional way. So what are your clothes communicating for you? How are they serving you? How are they helping you to think, perform, and feel your best? Unlike your home, your clothes will follow you absolutely everywhere you go. They are following you to your meetings, to your coffee catch-ups, to your dinners. They are following you to your presentations. So you want to make sure that they are serving you as best as they can. Your clothes are the physical thing that is closest to you than anything else. If you think about how much you rely on your phone, for example, your clothes are even closer to you than that. They are physically on your body and attached to you wherever you go in this way that nothing else is. So your clothes aren't just a superficial aspect of your personal brand. They play a really important role for how your interior affects your exterior, and your exterior can affect you and your environment. This reminds me of the concept of the broken windows theory, which is something that has come out of psychology and criminology, where a neighborhood, for example, that has more broken windows is likely to have increased continued damage and crimes. That is because the exterior of those broken windows presents that no one is paying attention, no one cares, no one's in charge, there are no rules to follow. So that subtly escalates the negative ramifications that can have on an environment. Your visual identity is the exterior of your personal brand. It's the shopfront window of your personal brand. So how are you projecting that it is cared for, that you are being intentional about your choices, that you are presenting yourself as best as you can? Does it align with not only where you have been, but where you want to go in the future? So let's start to break down some of the science related to how you dress. And to begin with, I want to revisit a topic that I have talked about on this channel before, which is the idea of enclothed cognition. So this was a concept that psychologists coined, which came from a study where they asked participants to wear identical coats. So they were either asked to wear a coat that they were told was a doctor's coat, or a coat that they were told was a painter's coat, but they were identical coats. And what they found was that the people that were told that they were wearing a doctor's coat performed significantly better on attention-related tasks than the people that were told that they were wearing a painter's coat. So what this research showed was that the symbolic meaning of clothing activates certain mental processes associated with the meaning of those clothes. So what you wear does matter. And this actually reminded me immediately of Marie Kondo, who, if you haven't heard of her, she is the global sensation behind the life-changing magic of tidying up. And she, for one, when you see her on Netflix, for example, will most often wear these blazers when she goes to consult with her clients. So, clients that she is helping to tidy up their house. And one of the quotes from her book that I really loved was that she says, if sweatpants are your everyday attire, then you end up looking like you belong in them, which is not very attractive. What you wear in your house does impact your self-image. And she says that she prefers to wear blazers when she goes to people's houses because for her, this is a sign of showing respect for what she does and also for the house that she is visiting. So you might be someone who dresses purely for comfort and doesn't actually think about what this is communicating to others around you. Or on the other hand, you might be someone who dresses for intention, who wants to embody a certain ideal mindset and ideal identity that is going to help you perform in a certain way and feel a certain way. And that's absolutely not to say that you can't wear track pants. I know actually in a lot of industries, this is actually going to work really well. For example, if you are in the health industry and you just embody activewear 24/7 as a part of your brand, that's going to make a lot of sense for you. But if you aren't in that industry or a related industry, for example, what is the way that you want to be communicating through your clothes? This really resonated with me, particularly post the pandemic and lockdowns, where I, for one, became so accustomed to just wearing activewear absolutely everywhere. Even after the lockdowns had ended, it was still something that I was continuing to do, even if I wasn't actually exercising. And I heard more and more people mention that maybe we don't have to wear activewear if we're not actually exercising that day. And that really resonated with me. And another creator that I saw mentioned that you can actually dress really nicely and really well presented while being also as comfortable as you might be in your activewear. And that was something that really stood out to me and I've really thought about since, about the fabrics and the styles and the structures that can feel just super comfortable, super cozy, but actually still present really well. And I don't think it's something that we often think about. We just associate dressing well with being some degree of uncomfortable sometimes, and it doesn't need to be the case. You can actually replace those tracksuits and those sweatpants and actually still be super comfortable and still look really elevated and really well presented. And this idea of maybe replacing the sweatpants actually leads really nicely to my next point and some more really interesting science in this space. So I want to talk about the power of power suits in helping you make power moves. So there was a study that was done with male participants where they were asked to wear 3 different types of clothing. So they either had to wear business attire, so this was a suit and tie, for example, or they had to wear neutral attire, or they had to wear casual attire like sweatpants, for example. And they were then placed in negotiation settings. And what they found was that the people that were wearing the business attire, the suits and the ties, for example, were rated by both participants and observers as being more competent, more persuasive, and more higher status. And they also actually performed better in the negotiations. They demanded higher value and they were less likely to make unnecessary concessions during the negotiation process. And they also showed better physical signs as well related to their heart rate. You can either be someone who unintentionally, most likely, dresses down for high stakes settings, or you can be someone who shows up to signal leadership and persuasion and influence. So now let's talk about the art of how you can align your ideal vision for yourself, your ideal lifestyle, your ideal personal brand with the way that you dress. So from over a decade of working in fashion, helping people feel empowered in how they dress was one of my absolute favorite things to do. But what I also found was that having your own confident sense of style doesn't need to require a complete overhaul of your wardrobe or any excessive shopping. It can be something that you achieve through making more intentional choices. Now, one of the things that I've talked about a lot on this channel lately, because I've just become more and more passionate about it, is mood boarding your ideas before you actually execute on them. So, for example, using Pinterest to create boards that are related to your ideal personal style. This is something that you can do for weeks, even months on end for yourself, depending how quickly you want to expedite some of your visual identity changes. And you can start to explore ideas that you have had in this space and see if they resonate with you in the long term before you actually make any moves in those areas. And this is a really fun way to think like the creative director of your personal brand that you are. Mood board like a designer first before you actually make those moves. And what you might find, hopefully, through this exercise is that a lot of the things that resonate with you on Pinterest, a lot of what you are mood boarding, for example, are the styles that you already have in your wardrobe. They just draw attention to what you love wearing the most, what feels the most comfortable for you, what feels the most elevated for you, what feels the most professional now and going forward into your personal brand. You probably already have all of those gems in your wardrobe. You maybe just haven't stopped to appreciate them as much as you could. So once you have done some of your brainstorming, review your wardrobe and pinpoint what actually aligns with where you want to go for your visual identity, what feels the best for you, both visually and functionally as well, for where you want to be with your personal brand. And if you find that there are potentially a few holes that you would like to fill and invest in for the long term, then that is where you can start to do some really intentional shopping when it comes to your personal brand. So again, this isn't about excess. This isn't about spending where you don't need to spend. It is about investing in a vision that is really clear to you over time in a way that is sustainable for you. And one of the things that you can do to begin with that isn't going to cost you anything is to try and just focus on window shopping first. So you might start to, for example, appreciate more and more brands that you have already loved and still align with the vision that you have for yourself. Or you might start to explore brands that you have wanted to align with more and more in the future. And you can window shop online. And obviously, this takes a level of restraint and self-discipline to be able to do this without just wanting to buy everything. And something that I love to do is that I always put everything into my shopping cart for quite a long period of time before I actually decide if it is something that I want. And if it is something that sells out, I don't really mind. I just feel like it wasn't for me. And if it is something that I continue to want after weeks, sometimes even after months, then I will actually make that purchase. And from someone that has worked in fashion for so long, I know what it feels like to always just think that you want that thing straight away and need that immediate gratification. But I also find that delaying that purchase means that you are super sure about what it is that you are buying. And because you are thinking with your visual identity, this consistent branding in mind, with your ideal self in mind, all of your purchases are more likely going to align with that vision when you have really thought about them properly as well. And as a side note, I, for example, just also like to really think about that functional aspect of things as much as the aesthetic aspect of things as well. So as I get older, I pay more attention than ever to what the care instructions for a particular garment is. And I think about how likely it is that I can care for it in the proper way that it requires. And I also love to think about how something fits into my ideal lifestyle of traveling as much as possible. So now when I buy something, I'm always thinking about how this can fit into my everyday life when I'm at home, working, catching up with people in my city. And then also thinking about how this could fit into my ideal travel goals. So, where I want to be for different times of the year. And is this something that can easily slot into that as well, so that I don't actually need a separate wardrobe for that lifestyle as well? Because I'm not big on the just shopping because you have a holiday coming up. I really like it to be things that you can wear in both. So I also, on that point, do like things to create in some way a capsule wardrobe. And by that, I don't mean it having to be super minimal with, say, 10 items in your wardrobe. I just mean I really like to think about how all of my different purchases fit into each other. So both in style, in fabrications, and how it is creating that cohesion so that I can get the most out of all of my items too. So you might also decide to window shop physically as well. So not actually just having to do this online, but starting to spend time visiting the places that you want to shop. And I think this is actually a really nice exercise. Again, if you can have some self-control in not having to purchase everything you see, and if it makes you feel okay to go into places like that if you're not necessarily in a position where you can buy those things yet. But to just embrace it, enjoy it, understand what it feels like to be a part of that brand. If you walk into a shop and you experience everything that that brand has to offer, if you're trying on clothes, that is still going to help you get one step closer to aligning your internal identity to those brands, even if you're not yet in a place to be able to purchase from those brands. You're acting as though it's already yours, and you're getting yourself that one step closer to it being a brand that you can actually connect with and actually maybe take home as well. Which leads me to my next point, and that is when you can and when you're ready and when it is sustainable for you to invest in a particular brand, consider doing this at the entry level point of that brand. So while you might have this amazing ideal purchase that sits in the top tier of that brand, that might not necessarily be something that you need to jump to straight away. So for example, you might have a high-end brand that you would love to purchase on, but more realistically, it could be more affordable for you to purchase maybe a small accessory from them, or a pair of sunglasses, for example. This is something that's often talked about in marketing, where you have, say, a pyramid, and at the top of that pyramid sits the couture items for that brand, for example. The things that only very few people will buy, if at all. It could just be designed for the runway. But where those businesses make most of their money is in that entry level. It's in the things that are accessible to more people. So think about, for example, if you can buy in at an entry level. No matter what it is, just consider if there is a lower price point that you can buy into, which is going to help you experience what it feels like to be a customer of that brand to begin with. So you've gone from the window shopping process to actually making that purchase, because when you make that purchase, there's going to be a few other processes and feelings that you will experience in that is going to help you once again align to that ideal self. And again, I just want to reiterate just being really careful about this, because none of this is about excess or about overspending. It is all about being really intentional when you do choose to spend. Another thing that you can do to make sure that you are dressing in a way that aligns with your ideal self is to make time to plan for that. So for example, actually planning out your outfits for the week in advance, which I know can be super tricky to do, and I've never really fully been able to master this myself either. But what I do think can work really well and is achievable for most people is to at least think about what you are going to wear the day before, because that is going to mean that you have made at least an intentional choice there without feeling super rushed when you're getting ready in the morning. Which, speaking of, leads me to another point, and that is to make space for getting ready. So I am someone, if you follow this channel, you might have realized absolutely loves to optimize every aspect of my routine. I love to make sure that things are timed really well, that I'm not spending too much time in anything that I feel doesn't serve me, and that I am spending a lot of time in the habits that I really want to have that I feel are making me better. So for me, what I've tried to do that is a little bit different to how I would normally operate is to really try and slow down the getting ready aspect of things. So while I make lots of time for reading and yoga and other things that I like to do in the morning, the getting ready part is something that I've really tried to just speed up and perfect as much as possible to just be really quick but effective. And so, what I've actually tried to do in the last few weeks is really just slow down and try and enjoy that process for what it is as well. So, don't feel like it is necessarily a chore that needs to be rushed through, but is a really important part of the process in your day. So if, for example, if you picture that you are a performer and you're going out on stage every day, as we all are in our jobs and in our work or whatever we do in our lives, for me, I've started to reframe what that process is of getting ready as being almost like those backstage moments. It's those moments where you slow down, you can take it all in, you can get your mindset right for the day that you have ahead of you, and to feel like you are actually relaxing in that process instead of feeling like it is something that you have to rush through because there's other places that you should be spending your time. So this is something that I'm trying to experiment with at the moment, is just not feeling so rushed in that aspect of my morning, because I feel like we always think we should be doing something else when it is a really nice luxury, and I think it puts us in a really nice mindset for the day that we have ahead if we're not actually rushing through that. It puts you in almost this abundance mindset, that you aren't someone who needs to be rushing all the time, that you aren't someone who is just constantly racing to get to your appointment or get to work, but you have the luxury to be able to slow down in those moments as well. Thanks so much. For more on how to build the visual identity of your personal brand, then check out my previous episode on this topic. I'll see you in the next episode.